Militant, aggressive hope. That is what Kaiju number 8 is all about. And Matsumoto in chapter 100 takes a moment to step back and remind us all about that. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a fully spoilery look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 100. This is a funny chapter. Matsumoto took the time to step back, take a deep breath, and remind us what the whole series was all about. When analyzing Western cartoons and comics, someone once said that superhero stories are power fantasies. They let us dream of having amazing powers. Meanwhile, the classic US comic G.I. Joe was a loyalty fantasy. The whole shtick was that these were regular guys, Joes. But no matter where you are or what horrible thing is happening, if you're a G.I. Joe, your friends are coming to rescue you. Kaiju number 8, of course, has a bit of a power fantasy. Those Defense Force suits alone give the main character superpowers, and Kafka's union with Little Guy straight up gives him superpowers as Kaiju number 8. But at its heart, Kaiju number 8 is not a power fantasy. It is far, far closer to being a G.I. Joe type loyalty fantasy. In chapter 100, things are in a bad place for our hero, and even his superhuman strength is not enough to save the day. However, this is not the end because his loyal friends come rocking up G.I. Joe style. However, this isn't just a simple loyalty fantasy either. It is a fantasy of community. It's not just that Kafka's fellow officers are arriving to save him. It is that together they have people, a whole city of people, and the infrastructure of that city that those people depend on, they're there in the background waiting to be protected. This isn't just a story about a middle-aged man rediscovering friendship. It's about rediscovering a meaning in life and a place in the larger community. This isn't about the happiness of the main character. This is about the meaning that gives the main character's life purpose. Now, I'm about to jump right into the spoilers, so in order to give you a chance to click away, I'm going to remind you that if you check out the links below the video, you will be able to go check out my books. I have 3 books of short, absurd science fiction out, and 1, soon to be 2 dramatic books of science fantasy. Go, click away, check them out, shoo, you have been warned. Now, back to Kaiju number 8, chapter 100. A lot of people have been noting that this chapter was a sudden slowdown from the previous pace, which I do agree with. Mina is over there being absorbed nearly 15 miles away from Kafka's current location, and while only a few seconds pass in the story, only a few words between Kafka and Reno, making it entirely excusable and understandable in-universe that Kafka is standing there talking to Reno while Mina is being absorbed. This chapter did slow down the story for the reader outside the universe, because that's all that really happened. We see Reno rock up, tell Kafka to get gone, then we see the rest of the rookies arrive, which is happening. The rookies arriving was happening in the previous chapter, not in the current timeline, even though the timeline we're talking about is just a few seconds. Then, while Kafka is hesitating, Reno literally smacks some sense into him, and Kaiju number 8 prepares to go tearing after Kaiju number 9, leaving the very well-armed, very well-trained rookies to protect their fellow officers and the innocent civilians trapped in their bunkers. So, what is this? Why did Matsumoto spend an entire chapter, a whole 25 pages, just setting up the pieces of this one fight when they had already been set up previously? Well, in addition to the usual, one of the main strengths of this show is how well it sets up the connective tissue between scenes. In addition to that, I think that because this was chapter 100, and because human brains like nice square numbers, Matsumoto wanted to take the time to remind us what this series was all about. One thing about the fiction of any era is that it reflects what the people at the time are afraid of and what they look to be their salvation from that fear. Godzilla, the granddaddy of the monsters, came out of a time when a sudden inevitable death could suddenly fall from the sky like Godzilla. Godzilla was a reflection of the fears at the time, and recently Godzilla -1 went into that exactly. But what fears, what suffering is plaguing the first world countries in this day and age? This is, after all, the beginning of a new century, of a new millennium. You hear of plagues of loneliness, single people afraid that they are going to die alone of old age, children trapped on electronic devices was a fear we saw reflected in Digimon. Now, here in Kaiju number 8, Matsumoto is expressing the very real condition of modern adults. They have good jobs, maybe a nice apartment, but life, this modern age we live in, has separated them from any real community. They are atomized individuals. They get up, go to work, go home, go to sleep. Meanwhile, world-changing disasters are happening all around them. There was just a giant earthquake in Japan, and we know that these kaiju the threat they pose is highly based on the very real threat of the constant earthquakes in an island nation that's built on volcanoes. That is the fear that Matsumoto has created a fantastic counter for. Our hero Kafka does have the power to change the world around him for the better, but no matter how individually powerful he is, he alone isn't enough. But he isn't alone. And by working with his team, they are going to do something worthwhile. They're going to rescue those innocent civilians trapped in their shelters. I really think that Kaiju number 8 is in a conversation, not with Godzilla -1, but with the same current day psychological trauma that Godzilla -1 is approaching. But Kaiju number 8 is more militantly hopeful. You are not alone, is what Kaiju number 8 is saying. You do have the power to meaningfully affect your community for the better. And you have teammates, you have friends that you can trust to have your back in this. And this is very true of the modern world. In this modern age, and I don't think we really appreciate how unheard of and world-changing this is. If there is a disaster in one country, it is understood that you're going to have backup. And you don't have a single kingdom facing the dragon alone anymore. And there are, despite the atomization that the technology has made in individual communities, it also connects people. You just have to reach out and be aggressive and reach out and communicate with the people around you. All right. Now, let's take a step back and zoom in. We're going to leave all of the big philosophical elements behind. And we're going to take a look at that cavalry that just rolled up in their helicopters. Reno has a specialized weapon in addition to the Kaiju number 6 suit. And this weapon flies around behind him like it's a mix between angel wings and cannons. And they fly around behind him and he can move them, allowing him to ice over multiple city blocks at once. Aiharu, who was out there supporting him in the development of this. We don't know what his specialized weapon is, but we know that this case that holds his specialized weapon is large enough to hold an entire human, and he's hauling it around on his back. And we find out that Aiharu has maxed out his speed for support, and we see him grab Manasseh and pull her out of the attack of one of those giant glass kaiju. Then we get the two hot ones. Oh, come on, hold on. Their names are right there, just a tick. Haruichi Izumu and Oi Kagarugi, respectively Rich Boy and Army Boy. Haruichi, Rich Boy, has gone all Hawkeye and is sporting a souped-up bow and arrow, which is, of course, a classic meme in all superhero, or whether it's a power fantasy or a loyalty fantasy, one of the teammates has got to have a bow and arrow. And we get Rich Saikon Boy doing that. And Kagaragi, the army guy, is sporting a specialized weapons case, and we haven't seen what's in it, but his is big enough to hold at least 3 human bodies. So, what do you think, my wonderful viewers? In making all this in making us all take a step back and remember what the series is all about, to look at our own modern demons and the psychological state we need to fight them. Did Matsumoto use the 100th chapter wisely, or did it just slow down and bog down the story? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Humans are weird. We took a vote. The second book of Human Absurdity is now available in audiobook format everywhere where audiobooks are sold. Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Kobo by Rakuten, and of course, Audible and Amazon. So you can now get a copy of the audiobook format of all 70,000 words of Human Absurdity.